Josephine, when I first met you, you were a documentary photographer very involved in shooting straight photographs, documenting news and features, and now you're doing these lovely photogravures. How did this come to pass?
Well, okay. Because when I first learned photography, I learned in France. And my big sort of example, my mentor, was Cartier-Bresson and Doisneau and the whole sort of French humanist photographers, and Cortez also. And so that's how I learned. So I thought that this is it, this is photography. And then when we came to the States, we moved to the French Quarter, I started doing a series of photographs on the streets, kind of based on a Baudelaire idea about the flaneur, the person who walks around the city and is just observing what's going on. So I started doing that, and I did a series. The first sort of exhibit I had in New Orleans was a thing called Sanctuary, which was about the French Quarter and about street life in the quarter. But then, after a while, I started seeing some really disturbing things and depressing things and sad things, and it looked like what had at first looked kind of picturesque was starting to look like something else. And I then had to ask myself, okay, why this is happening, this is there, and now it's not only it's going to be there, but a picture of it is going to be in a gallery. So I'm just adding to that. That was basically my thing. But bad enough that you know there are so many sad and difficult things in the streets. But now I'm also going to promote it in magazines. I'm going to promote it in galleries, and I'm doing my part to contribute more ugliness to the world. And I felt like if I really wanted to see something really beautiful, I was going to have to make it. And that sort of, it wasn't articulated like that clearly, but that's sort of the way I was thinking. And then one day, I went to a Mardi Gras party, a friend of mine, and she said, oh, come by, it's going to be at, and she gave me the address, and it was on St. Louis Street. It was an apartment building on St. Louis Street. And I walked in there, and I was just blown away by the space. And I thought, my God, this is like some sort of terrestrial paradise. So I asked her, I said, what is this place? And she said, well, you know, I use it as a studio, but I don't really use it very much. So would you like to share it with me? And right away I said, absolutely. I had no idea what I would do or anything. I just know that I wanted to be able to go to that space. So it began with a space, really. And then I thought, okay, well, if I take pictures in here, what am I going to put in here? And so then little by little it evolved into mostly working with some literary text that was moving me very much at the time. And then I thought, well, I have this beautiful space, I'll get some people and I'll try and express visually some of these things that are moving me, you know, in poetry. It was Rilke at the time. And so I started working from the inside out, basically, instead of from the outside in. And it was a huge change for me. That was around and I guess it was around 1987 or something. And I had been doing photography for about, maybe 10 years at that point.
I seem to recall that was when you began doing a lot of portraits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the space really just kind of set the tone, set the stage, created the presence that led to this evolution with the portraiture.
Right.
And then it became more subjective, I think, from there, as I recall.
Yeah. And it's basically been, ever since that first series, which was called Angels, Mirrors, and Light, which was based on the Duino elegies of Rilke, ever since then, it's been completely connected to some literary experience that I'm having, which obviously, if I'm connecting to the literary experience, it's something about me that this is speaking to. So it's become much more figuring out what I want to say about certain things in life, certain perennial things, for me anyway. And so it's really more constructed. It's constructed work now in the sense that I create a body of work, put together the pieces, rather than respond to life in general.
I think I remember it was during that period that you began experimenting with these different papers, like there was that Waco Luminous paper you were using for a while that had a more diffuse, flat quality.
Right.
And looking back, I can almost see how that was kind of leading you in the direction where you have finally ended up. Huh?
Well, you're exactly on with that because, well, for one thing, I have to say that if I use a process, you can be sure that within a year it's going to be obsolete. Because every paper that I ever fell in love with and thought, I have finally reached, the next time I went to order, oh, sorry, we're not making that anymore. They did that to me with AGFA paper, Portriga paper. Yeah. They did it to me with a luminous paper. Because with a luminous paper, I accidentally, mistakenly, it was a very thin paper, like single weight, I mistakenly printed on the wrong side. And when I saw the image, it was like really strange. I had this beautiful grainy quality. I thought, how did I get that? It was a mistake. And that mistake, I wrote it for years. Yeah. I printed through the back of the cheap paper and got this incredible effect. And so I was really pleased with that, but there were other problems involved in that it was a paper with almost no silver in it. And so, I mean, it was really... 2 years ago, I took a photogravure workshop in Austin, Texas. And from the moment I made my first gravure, I realized I've been trying to do this for 30 years. You know, why in the darkroom? I've been going through, jumping through every hoop I could think of to come up with this effect. This is what I've been looking for. And so now I feel really like I can shut down the darkroom for all intents and purposes. I have, in fact. Yeah. And now I've got, and there's no way they can make it obsolete. I mean, it's...
It's already obsolete.
It already is.